We're now joined by Collegian football reporter Keegan Pope. Keegan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Keegan, there's been a lot of questions surrounding this team. Coach McElwain's gone, Garrett Grayson in the pros, Ty Sambrelo in the pros. How do you think this team's going to be this year? They have a game on Saturday against Savannah State.
I think you won't see this team really tested this first week against Savannah State. That's a team that's lost 21 straight games, only scored 11 points a game last year, so I think CSU will get through that one pretty easily. But I think week 2 they play against a good Minnesota team, then they have CU the week after that. So I think this team will be tested pretty early. But look for CSU to be in that maybe 7 to 8 win range by the time the season's over with.
And then they have another big game against Minnesota at home. But when you look at the schedule, what are the other games down the road you see that could be losses?
I think the one that really sticks out to me is at Utah State on October 3rd. Utah State is always a tough place to play. They have Chucky Keaton coming back, who was an All-Mountain West quarterback before he was hurt last year. I think that's a tough game. I think at home against Boise State, they lose a lot off of last year's team, but I also think that they have a lot coming back, 16 starters on offense and defense, so a lot coming back off of that team. And then Air Force is another tough game for this team. CSU will be looking for some revenge after they lost to them in the season finale last year, but as always, in-state games are tough ones.
Now, Keegs, the quarterback battle in the offseason between Coleman Key and Nick Stevens. Nick Stevens has been named the starter. Do you think that was a great decision by Bobo? I mean, he's got huge shoes to fill with Garrett Grayson.
I do. I think Nick was the right decision. I think anybody who watched them from the start of spring practice when Nick kind of took over all the way through fall camp, all the way through this first week of preparation for Savannah State can see that Nick is really the guy. He's a guy that he's really smart, and he may not have the arm that Garrett Grayson has or even that Coleman Key, his backup, has, but he makes the right decision. Whenever you talk to guys on the team, they keep talking about how quickly he picked up this new playbook and how he knows where everybody needs to be, where he needs to be, where he needs to go with the ball. So I think that's the big thing, is he really just knows what he's doing out there, and I think that was his big advantage over Coleman Key.
How big of a role do you think him having experience in previous seasons helped him out?
I think it absolutely helped. I mean, he only completed 15 passes last year, which doesn't seem like a whole lot, but that's 15 more than Coleman Key completed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He has experience out in front of a crowd. He has experience in a game, which I think you can't really take lightly. I think that's one thing that really propelled him, was just that he knows what it's like. He knows what it's like to run an offense. He's thrown a touchdown pass to Rashard Higgins, and I think he really knows that team better than anybody else.
All right, well, another position that was really in the spotlight this offseason was the running back position. You have Jace Noden. Dalen Dawkins was announced to be the #1 running back on the depth chart this week. Treyas Gerald's, a lot of players there. Do you think Bobo made the right move with Dawkins? And what do you think it's going to be like this whole season with those?
I think Dalen Dawkins, with the way they have it now with Treyas Gerald's being hurt with a knee injury, I think Dalen is the right choice. He's a guy that's a little smaller, probably about 5'6" or 5'7". He's not a typical big back like Mike Bobo's used to, but he couldn't stop raving about how hard this guy runs, how hard he runs in practice, how hard he ran in scrimmages. He was impressed from the first day you met him in the spring. So I think he's going to be, at least for now, kind of the primary ball carrier while Treyas Gerald's is out. But Jason Oden's another guy a little bigger that can come in and supplement him. And then they have freshman Izzy Matthews, who Bobo has also raved about. He's even bigger, probably about 6'2", 235, so he's a real bruiser, kind of what Bobo's used to with the running backs he had at Georgia. So look for him to kind of make an impact, probably in the short yardage situations around the goal line, stuff like that.
Now, Keegs, if you had to look at this whole roster this year, do you have any under-the-radar players that you have in mind?
I think probably the biggest one that stuck out to me during fall camp was Josh Watson. He's the backup linebacker behind Corey James. He's about 6'2", 6'3", 240 pounds, so he is a big guy. He probably runs in the 4'5", 4'6", so he's a big athlete out there. When you see Corey James's numbers, you probably think, yeah, this guy probably won't get a ton of time out there, but obviously Corey James will be in pass rushing situations. He'll have his hand on the ground, so you'll see some of him. Another guy is Braylon Scott. He's a cornerback, a freshman that they brought in from California. He's a guy that Coach Bobo has also raved about. He's about 6'3", really long arms, and he's really had an impact in fall camp so far.
Well, obviously, Rashard Higgins, a superstar in his own right. We already talked about it earlier this show. He loses an NFL-caliber quarterback. Now Nick Stevens comes in. Do you think we're going to see numbers drop for Higgins?
I think, yeah, we probably won't see the 96 catches, 1,750 yards from last year. I mean, that's a huge year for a guy that was only a sophomore. But I think you'll still see the big plays from him. And I think the thing about Rashard that makes him so special is he can do it all. I mean, he can beat you down the field. He'll run right past you. He can take a screen past 70 yards and go for a touchdown. He'll go across the middle and make a tough catch. He'll block. He'll do all of the things. But I think the biggest thing is they have a ton of weapons. You look at their tight end situation. They have 2 All-Mountain West tight ends with Stephen Walker and Kevon Cartwright returning. They have a ton of receiver depth, and they also have backs who can catch it out of the backfield. So I think, yeah, his numbers go down, but I think he won't be any less of a playmaker this year.
All right, it's definitely going to be an exciting football season. Thanks for joining us, Keegan.
Thanks for having me, guys.